podcast. I'm here with Tracy Teitelbaum. He's done over 670 national bodybuilding shows and various other organizations, NBC, you name it. He's also in the INBA PNBA Hall of Fame. So I've been looking forward to doing this podcast for a while with him, and we're finally getting the time to do it. And then just on a side note, real quick, for funny, we already talked about this prior, but I'm just gonna let y'all know I definitely got into a fight with a grizzly bear, and I did not punch myself in the face trying to open a pack of water. So if you see the black eye, that's what that is. So yeah, on that note, you want to start with we were just saying we wanted to start with before and after with depressions, moods, and bodybuilding and all that stuff because it is important right now specifically. Like just with I'm just going to say this, just with the way the world is right now, mental health is got to be priority. So I'll kick it off with you and let you go.
Definitely, mental health is everything with bodybuilding, physique, wellness, bikini, figure. Every day in the gym, you always have people saying, hey, I'm 10 weeks out from a competition. What do you think? I try to tell people, just go by the mirror, do the best you can, and never compare yourself to another bodybuilder or a competitor, whichever field of expertise you're trying to conquer in the amateur or pro level ranks, because, we all have genetics, and genetics are only going to take you so far in the natural bodybuilding world. I run into a lot of clients being a fitness trainer for 40 years in Glendale, Arizona. They're like, hey, I want to build up 18-inch calves. And I look at their calves, for instance, say, well, you have 14-inch calves. If your grandpa and your father had 14-inch calves, you might be able to build them up to a reasonable point. But, you have to think about size, shape, definition, symmetry, and just be the best you genetically can be. Because a lot of people get really depressed, before a show, because somebody will pick on a body part. I think the way society is nowadays, people need to stop being so cruel to each other. We're supposed to be a camaraderie. And I noticed that over the decades, again, I've been doing this for 5 decades, the camaraderie isn't as tight as it used to be back in the 60s and 70s. And I think, you go to competition, people stare you down and all. Competition's supposed to be fun. The work is over. You're there to have fun, whether you get first place or 10th place. Everybody's a winner, number one, stepping on stage, because only 1% of the world ever does that, less than 1%. And you should always be appreciative that, you're staying consistent, you're bettering your health every day, every week, every month, year after year. You're warding off diseases. I think people need to just be positive in the gym, in and out of the gym, positive with the nutrition, positive with their family and friends. And just, God gave you a body, be the best you can be. It's really that simple, folks. Don't let anybody rain on your parade. Somebody the other day tried to rain on my parade, and somebody else in the gym said, wow, you don't let anybody rain on your parade, do you? I said, my parade is too big to be rained on. So that's my attitude about, before competing, just stick with it. Listen to your coach. Don't listen to 100 people, because then you'll get confused and go, well, this coach said that coach said this. The biggest advice I could tell anybody prepping for a show, believe in your coach. And if after a while you don't believe in them, hey, there's nothing wrong in changing coaches. People have done it on me. Don't take it offensive, coaches. It happens. What works with one coach might not work with another coach, and vice versa. So just do the best you can do every day in the gym. Avoid injuries, and welcome to the bodybuilding world. It can be a very cruel place. Just remember, you got to stay in the kitchen. It's a hot kitchen out there. If you can't handle it, like people tell me, if the fire's too hot, get out of the kitchen and pick up another sport. Remember, it's a very subjective sport. It's not like running a marathon where you break the tape.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, those are my thoughts.
No, yeah, I totally agree with everything you're saying. And unfortunately, just with today's day and age with technology, we have at our fingertips the ability to compare yourselves with infinite amounts of people, and then you start to fill up your social media sites with other like-minded individuals. But sometimes that can ultimately be a downfall, because then you just start scrolling and comparing yourself to all these other people, and you're constantly looking at them. And it's human nature to get into that mindset. I do believe, you always have the curiosity in the back of your brain, but at the end of the day, like you said, like if you, well, for like just talk about science wise, if you get into that rut where you're just constantly doing that and worried about that, you're going to spike your cortisol, and that's no good for bodybuilding. You know, you don't want that to happen. You want to suppress that as much as possible. So, like you said, you can only control what you can control. You didn't get to pick your parents. Life ain't fair. You know, you just can work as hard as you can. I had conversation earlier with a family member that was very light in body weight, and she's trying to gain weight because she's so thin. And not to use her as an example, but it's actually the opposite of her. She's got a hyperactive thyroidism problem possibly, so you know it might be hard for her to gain weight. But a lot of people sit there and they start using these crutches and saying, I can't do this, I can't do that. This person can do that. They can eat ice cream and burn the fat off. That's just who they are. It's like, no, they work hard. You know, they're day in and day out. They put one step forward. You might go two steps back, but as long as you're trying to put one step forward, you should eventually make your way. And one of the things I always advocate for mental health going into this, because it can be so debilitating, like you said. And when you get down to these low body fat levels, if you're doing everything proper, you're going to be miserable because your testosterone, your estrogen, your hormones are all out of whack. But my whole thing is forget about like how much weight you're lifting, all that stuff. I don't care. You know, I try and say, I do the 10% or whatever and stick with that throughout prep. If I lose, I maintain 90% of my strength. But forget all that. If you just tell yourself every single day that you're trying your hardest, you really are. I just don't see how you could be miserable with yourself. It doesn't make any sense. You know you're putting your best efforts. Now, if you weren't and you know you're not, yeah, I could see where that could creep in. Because again, that's human nature. But yeah, just again, what I say, 100% every day. But 100% every day isn't going to be, 100% performance of your peak performance every day. 100% one day might be 90% of the other day, but it's always 100%. You know?
That's definitely where periodization training comes in. Nobody can go 100% every day. If they can, they're very gifted.
Right.
Number one. Number two, I think there's days where time under tension might be a method people use, and then they go maybe 70% of what they're normally using for their max.
Yeah.
But you touched on a very important situation that very few people are so unaware of. Cortisol levels. I
Oh, yeah.
tell everybody, 80% of the bodybuilders I meet in the gym, oh, I sleep 5 hours a night. I hate to say it, you're defeating your purpose. Your body builds, growth hormone gets released, IGF-1A gets released when you're sleeping. Folks, if you're not sleeping minimal 7, and I know bodybuilders who sleep 10, people are like, well, that's not the real world. Well, if you're going to be competing, you have to make it the real world, because
Right.
you have to get into that deep REM sleep to be able to rest and recover and to avoid injuries. Another thing is, 80% of what you do is what you do at the breakfast, lunch, and dinner table. 80% of it's nutrition. So, you have to be on point with your supplements, with your meal prep, and then the rest will fall into place, because you cannot out train or out cardio a bad diet. It doesn't work.
No, I agree. And yeah, like yeah, I totally agree with everything you just said. That's the other. I don't know, we can go all over different topics here. I love talking about it, but yeah, like the food, people just don't get how important that can be, and it's a tool at your disposal. Food works pretty much. None of us are aliens. We're all gonna have the food at our disposal, and until somebody can digest fiber, and take it like an animal can, everybody's on a level playing field with food, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So how you manipulate that is totally up to you. And, some people think they're eating a lot and they're hard gainers. And then if they actually track it, they're not eating a lot of food, and vice versa. They're trying to lose weight and they're in this deficit and they're not losing weight, getting shredded for a show. But if they really track their food, they're not doing the proper things they're supposed to be doing. So, yeah, I mean, it can be crazy. But yeah, all in all, I honestly think like mental health in and out of a show is probably one of the biggest things. And let's just go into this to piggyback, and then we'll go into judging if you want. Coming out of a show. So let's talk about the opposite end now. When we're coming out of a show. Uh, I feel like
I
there's like what would the word you'd be like an exuberance feeling where like you just want to binge on food and go crazy, and then you can really destroy I'll be honest with you right now. After my very first show, I pigged out I think, yeah, I was drinking beer. I was at least 20. I was 21, I think. I don't know, but whatever. I'm drinking beer, I'm eating potato chips, ice cream, everything you can get your hands on. I walked onto that stage with I've always had decent abs, so I walked onto the stage with a pretty good six pack. Now, I wasn't a big guy at all at the time, but I had a good six pack. I woke up the next morning 30 pounds heavier, and I had a complete belly. I looked like Santa Claus. It just like my whole thing was just ruined, and it took a long time for me to rebound from that, but yeah, it was bad.
Edema is a beautiful thing. That water weight,
Yeah.
people can't believe what you just experienced can truly happen. They're like, that's impossible. No, that word
Uh-huh.
impossible meant I am possible, and I did do it. I went on a cruise ship one time right after a bodybuilding show weighing 143. I came off a week later weighing 175. I couldn't even put on my shoes. My ankles looked like cankles. So I think a lot of people binge out after a show because the stress is gone. And just like even before a show, people use food for comfort. They use it for depression. They use it for every excuse not to stay on track. And I think after a show, a lot of competitors get very depressed. It's like, wow, the show's over now. What do I do? Do I keep training as hard as I did before the show? You know, wow, how do I go around to all my family members apologizing that I was kind of off personality wise before the show? To me, I think I'm very unusual because I always stay usually 5 to 6 pounds year round. I mean, Dexter Jackson, professional bodybuilder, drilled that into my head about that. And I heeded to it. And of course, like you say, I never have an off season. And I did it my way for 50 years. I always stayed as a bantamweight. And there's a lot of pro bodybuilders in Phoenix, Arizona that said, you know what, we tried to get you to do this, this, and that. But the reason I never listened is I knew I could never be a true IFBB pro making 6 digits a year. So I sat there and said, well, I'm just going to be the best I can be. And I think because I didn't abuse my body, that's why my longevity of 50 years competing without ever missing minimal 5 shows a year for 50 years. My blessing is I always stayed within very close competition shape and never abused my ligaments, my tendons, and my joints. Not saying there's anything wrong with 99% of the people who do have an off season. I was just the 1% that honestly didn't listen. But I'm content with the way I look. You have to love yourself. And talking about mental depression, a lot of my clients, I tell them every morning, wake up and whatever your name is, look in the mirror and say, hey, my name's Tracy Teitelbaum. I love myself. And today I'm going to kick butt in the gym and do the best I can. And at the end of the day, I'm going to smile at people so they can smile back. Because you know what? There's so much depression and cruelty throughout the world. I mean, I have relatives in Israel. I mean, I love Israel. I would never live there because everybody around there hates Israel. Just like my wife's from Russia right now, what's going on in Uzbekistan. And here we live in the United States. We should be blessed in the amount of freedom we have. So I tell people, when you wake up in the morning, hey, your eyes opened up. You still have 2 arms and 2 legs. Be thankful for what you have, not what you don't have. Hey, I don't have an Arnold Schwarzenegger chest. Am I going to walk around and look in the mirror every day and have severe muscle dysmorphia, which a lot of bodybuilders do have? They just don't admit it openly because to them it's shameful. You know what? People will respect you publicly, in my opinion. If you went on social media and actually admitted your weaknesses,
Right.
how can you condemn somebody for admitting their weaknesses? Because you know what? The bodybuilding natural organizations should all unite and become one big family. And you know what? Nobody is better than the next person because my dad told me everybody's out of the same alley, just different trash cans.
Right. Yeah. And the two things that I was going to bring up, the first one was, oh shoot, what was the point you made right before that? I had two things I wanted to talk. I have a brain fart. Yeah. So coming out of a show, oh yeah, the longevity thing. So there's two things with that. So the longevity thing to me is super important, and it goes piggyback with mental health in this field because I can't like stress how impressed it is for me to see somebody like you compete and do these shows like this for as long as you have. That doing it for 50 years, I don't think people understand. uh, if you're going to do it for that long, there's intrinsic motivation. That's what it's called. And it's something that truly makes you happy. My grandpa told me, God rest his soul, he told me that he never worked a job in his life that he wasn't happy about. So then he told me, he goes, I never felt like I worked. And if you're truly intrinsically motivated by being in the gym, weightlifting, and being, like you said, the best version, we're not talking about you got to constantly put pressure on yourself to win the big shows and all this, but you're just in and doing it all the time. That just shows how intrinsically motivating it is to you. It is like something truly happy. And not only that, to be able to do it for 50 years is just it's astronomically impressive because most people can't even get through 10 years of bodybuilding, trying to bodybuild, let alone doing it for 5 times that. And that's just a test of time to show like other people, like there's a lot of people out there that would say you can't do it for a long time. It's not healthy for you, this and that. Like this podcast and you read on this podcast is just literally living proof that that is incorrect. It's how you take care of your body. It's throughout the time that you're doing it, what you're eating, how you're training. You know, I love Ronnie Coleman, but he's had videos out there that says, I had a slip disc. My doctor told me I had a slip disc. I just kept squatting heavy right after that. I had the Olympia to win. Okay, well, now we understand why he's in the position he's in. It's understandable. He sacrificed what he thought he needed to get to what he wanted to get. And nothing taken away from the guy. He's intrinsically motivated by weightlifting just the same because he's got to be in his 60s almost now. And he's in a wheelchair getting up trying to curl those dumbbells. So he loves it. And I
You
think
gotta admire it. You gotta admire Ronnie Coleman because he's truly, the man knows he's never stepping on a stage again, but you know what he's truly doing all the way, like myself, he's gonna take it all the way to the grave and then probably be knocking when he's in the grave on the casket door, like me saying, let me out. He's truly doing what he loves to do. And, I don't think Ronnie sits there and says, wow, I'm a shadow of myself. I think Ronnie goes, thank God that I can still even get in the gym and do anything because his personality is one of a kind. And there's people like him, Robbie Robinson. Robbie's 80 years old, still going. I mean, longevity is everything. And I think all these people are still alive because they did one thing that a lot of people don't do. They don't keep up on their blood work, which is so important because you can look phenomenal, but if you're smack 20 and your levels are off, your kidney functions, your PSA, TSH, SGOTs, if they're off, then you're fighting father time. And I tell everybody in this sport, it is very hard on your body, and your chemistry does change. I myself do my blood work every 6 months, full chemical profile. People go, that's an overkill. Well, better an overkill than an underkill, my opinion.
it's not, it's not like some, whatever. The way I look at that, that's just silly to say. It's not like it's hurting you to get this blood work done and all this stuff. You know, yeah, I was just talking about that earlier. Like I've been in the doctor a long time, to be honest with you. And I was just sitting there thinking like, geez, just for giggles, I'm about to be 30. I was like, I should just go and get a checkup. I want to make sure everything's good with my numbers and stuff. Cause I feel great, but like you said, you just want to make sure. And, so it's funny enough you bring that up. Like, yeah, I'm going to see my doctor the first time in a long time, just because I want to make sure everything's all, all homeostasis and looking good, regardless of whether I look good or feel good. So.
Exactly. I mean, to me, blood work's very important. It's amazing how I see so many people in the gym in their 20s and 30s. Recently, I did a survey, and a lot of these male bodybuilders, their testosterone levels are in the 200, 300s. And I have to say that, some of it obviously is genetics, but I go back to the nutrition. How your nutrition's got to be so off and your sleep has to be so deprived, and something's just not right. That I never heard about this 30 years ago because I went and had my testosterone level checked about 6 months ago, and my natural testosterone level was 870. And my doctor asked me, are you doing TRT? I'm like, no. He goes, well, what's your diet? I said, fish, vegetables, water, a little bit of coffee, and that's it. He goes, well, something's keeping your testosterone level up so high. It's, to me, nutrition's everything. It really is.
Yeah.
You feel your body like a Ferrari, it's going to run like a Ferrari. If you feel it like a bug, it's going to chug.
Yes, I agree 100%. And, you get into like spiking your insulin through fast-acting sugars, and this is how people turn themselves diabetic, and then they start to sit there and crutch and crutch and crutch. And I don't know, like I do these podcasts with everybody because I like to talk about this stuff. I want people to realize like you can do things, you can do extraordinary things that you wouldn't think's possible until you try. It's just wild to see like. You've seen in the gym, it's just as simple as picking up a weight, and they can't do it maybe, and then the next thing you know, they don't think they can do it, and then the next thing you know, they come in and they think they can do it, and they do it. And it's just like, well, there you go. Power positive, power perceived is power achieved.
Correct. People definitely need to learn how to control their weights that they're using in the gym, because a lot of people, you can hoist any weight sloppily, but
Right.
growing up at Gold's Gym in Santa Monica, I was always told, to a point, it's not how much weight you push, it's how you push the weight. And another thing I noticed in today's time is gym etiquette. Where did it go? Wow. You could be sitting there and doing a set of dumbbell curls 5 feet away from the dumbbell rack, and some clown literally will jump in front of you and do the same exercise and block your mirror space. It's like, come on, people, have some common sense, But the problem nowadays is everybody has earbuds on, so
Right.
nobody communicates. And I personally think social media really made today's society a lot more unfriendly and a little more vindictive towards each other and pick on each other more so since social media. It's like you walk up to somebody, it's like they take their earbuds like, wow, what do you want? Hey, I just want to give you a helpful hint. Oh, I know what I'm doing. Well, obviously not if you're coming up as a professional trainer trying to assist somebody. People nowadays, most people, they don't want professional advice given because they think you're condemning them.
Right.
And it's a shame that everybody's so defensive.
No, yeah, I agree. When I was coming up, I was the exact opposite. Bruce Loomis was my mentor when I first came up. He was when I first got into this, Bruce Loomis was my mentor. He was I don't know if you know the name. He competed in bodybuilding all throughout the I want to say from 19 let's see, at the time he was 73, so that would have meant he was born in like the late 30s, early 40s. So he was competing I think from the mid 50s, and he said he watched Arnold, so he was going all the way up through the mid 70s. But yeah, one of the things he told me early on, and going on him too, is he had at 73. I'm not even lying to you. He had a better body than all the 20 anybody. He had a better body than virtually anybody in that gym out of hundreds and hundreds of people at 73. It was just wild. But yeah, one of the big things he told me was to just really, keep your ears open and listen. Obviously, there's good and bad advice out there, but one of the things that I got fixated on was taking advice from people that were also progressing. That was a big thing with me. If I seen other people in the gym kicking butt every day, pretty much same time I would come in there, and I saw them doing things, I'd be like, I would have no shame going up to them and asking. Maybe they wanted to be a jerk off me and tell me to go away. Fine. I'd go up to the next guy that was making progress, and I'd figure out what he was doing. Um, and I just constantly analyzed people, always just looking at people. You know, I personally don't have, I laugh. I do see some of the gym etiquette problems in the gym sometimes, but I just don't go to commercial gyms anymore to even see that. I just, collecting the equipment got me into the farm gym, but, yeah, I do find it strange how some people act in the gym. I was in a gym not too long ago with Robbie, and, I noticed some strange stuff. You walk away. I literally walked away from this thing for literally, I'm not even lying, to 15 seconds and come back and some kid just took the handle off the cable, was doing something totally different. I didn't even say anything to him. I was like, you know what? I was going to do tricep extensions with that V-bar over there. I'll just go do dumbbell overhead extensions because I just don't even care at this point. I was like, whatever. But I was just like, yeah, I'm just strange with some people. But at the same time, like you said, vice versa. I had a kid come up to Rob and I while we were working out, and he was asking us questions and stuff, and totally receptive to him. Not a jerk. Took my headphones off. Took the time to talk to him, giving him all sorts of feedback or help, anything you want to know. We were talking for like a good 10 minutes, working and talking at the same time. Obviously, it isn't as efficient as working, but, um, I want to motivate people to do this down the road. You motivated people like me, I motivate the next generation, and so on and so forth, and it just continues to go. Because if it doesn't, uh, we're headed for bad times, I guess.
Well, staying humble is very important, especially, I've met some pro IFBB bodybuilders throughout the years, Some of them were very humble, and some were like, "Wow, really? I cannot believe you're conducting your aura around you that traumatically in a negative way." I mean, there's egos with a lot of IFBB bodybuilders, and a lot of them have them in check, and they treat everybody, even if you're an amateur bodybuilder and they think you might be a joke, they still treat you like, hey, I can help you. And attitude is everything in the gym. What impresses me about the podcast you and your partner have done is, for your age, you have a lot of nutritional knowledge, and you need to keep that coming because, again, I'm a big believer on knowledge, and I've watched every one of your podcasts, and you hit home. If you get even 1 out of 50 people listening to the podcast changing something in their nutrition, that's why we're all doing this live with podcast, FaceTime, Google Duo, because if we can help one person, then you know what, we sleep good at night. you know I mean, I've seen people, after we had a person 30 years ago get third place at a bodybuilding show. He had a wife and 4 kids. He was so into winning the show, he went home. This is in Scottsdale, Arizona here, and took a shotgun and killed himself, left behind a wife and 3 or 4 kids.
That's
And I'm like, wow, this is really a bad, depressed individual. And I want everybody out there to realize, you know what, whether you get last place at the USA or an IFBB show, just try to be better the next year. But to go home and be that selfish to take your own life from being that severely depressed because you didn't win a show, people, this is real depression. And a lot of people, when they're dieting, your whole chemistry is off, and you have to really recognize it. A lot of people sit there and say, yeah, I told my wife, she said good morning, and I'm like, well, what's so good about it? Hey, you got to remember that queen next to you, you got to keep treating like a queen, or she's going to get rid of the zero and get herself a hero. You have to understand that you're putting yourself through this yourself. It's the hardest sport in the world. For one reason, it's 24-hour nutrition, number one. Number two, you have to keep that temperament in check because you have family, friends, kids, grandkids. Treat them as if you're not even getting ready for a show. Or believe it or not, you're going to end up being one of the loneliest athletes out there, and you're going to be sleeping with a ton of trophies. And I've seen this happen literally to dozens of athletes. So please heed the warning that if you're in a bad mood, doesn't mean you have to put everybody else in a bad mood.
Yeah, agreed. I was telling you before we started when we were doing our chat earlier, like I literally came either second to last or dead last in my first 7 bodybuilding shows. Had absolutely no ask. I just kept telling myself, I was like, I will just, my phrase is be better than yesterday. I just told myself I'll just keep being better than yesterday. And I was telling you earlier, either the stick's gonna break or I'm gonna break, one or the other. I'll just keep doing it because why? It's intrinsically motivating. I find this fascinating. I don't care if I lose that stake. I find this fascinating. I want to see where I can go with it, and it's just for me it was fun. And then I got to meet people early on like Phil. We both know Phil. Shout out to him, and that really, honestly, meeting him was like one of the big moments in my natural bodybuilding career. It really it mentally took my mind to another place. For what I don't know why, but I just genuinely knew the man was just, without even talking to him yet, like he was one of the most humble, genuine guys I've ever seen for the eliteness that he yields in his sport. And then I did talk to him after stage, after he was guest posing, and yeah, just extrapolated my mind. So then I don't know. My other big thing for people that are trying to make progress, and then this will be the quick thing, and then we'll go into the whole judging thing because I want to get into that. We've been going a while. We'll have to do another one of these too because we're gonna just keep going on. But yeah, just try to surround, instead of trying to push everybody away and be isolated in doing this, because sometimes you watch videos that say it's a selfish sport. My main goal with Rob when I came into this sport was I wanted to prove that you could do bodybuilding as a team. I, how did we go about this? Well, so for starters, we're lucky we're best friends, and we both became professional natural bodybuilders. But when we went into this, we told each other right off the bat, if you or me wins money, we're splitting, we're doing everything all down the middle, everything, because we're a team. This is a team sport for us and not a selfish sport. And ever since that day, we stuck to our guns. You know, we've won shows, we've lost shows, but at the end of the day, we're always a unit. We don't think about these shows as like a selfish thing. So, and the reason for that is because if you surround yourself with like-minded people that truly want to improve all the time, I just think we're all made up of energy at the end of the day. Not to get super spiritual, but like when you have energy and then you have another uh, highly reactive energy surrounding each other, it's going to make a higher reactive energy. So if you have a low and a low, or a low and a mid, or a low and a high, I feel like they counter off and kind of mold each other into the middle. And when you got two explosive pieces of energy in the same room, it's going to create some dynamite. And it only pushes both sides to a higher level. So I feel like a lot of people miss out on it. Training partners are, as you would know, they're very hard to come by, which is why I do value the guys that come to my gym so much. Mark, Ed, Rob, uh, they're irreplaceable for my bodybuilding career.
Consistency is everything, and finding a good training partner. Right now, to be honest, I have a 4'10" female training partner. We call her Little Xena. I don't know if you've seen some of the videos
I
of
have
me
it, yeah.
training with her, but she's incredible. And we talk to each other every day. And in the last couple of weeks, we both have gotten rid of two people in our friendship circle that are toxic. So I want to publicly tell people, look, if there's somebody out there that keeps feeding you and what I call beneath you negative comments, whether it's a family member, a best friend, a relative, you have to get rid of the toxicity in your circle, because if you don't, you end up becoming toxic yourself and you will never achieve the best body of your life. You have to surround yourself with nothing but positive energy. There's too many people out there that are positive. So, hey, if you have to kick somebody to the curb and hurt their feelings, but remember, at the end of the day, the only person you have to be concerned about is yourself.
Right. Yeah, no, totally agree. So, yeah, I think we could go on forever about that, but I want to get into the next topic. We're definitely gonna have to do more videos because we could just go on forever. So let's get into this whole judging thing. I talked about it last time, but this is a big topic that we need to keep addressing until they fix it. I've done shows with three judges. That to me is unacceptable. You can't have three judges because now each judge weighs 33%. That's too much percentage on one person for a sport, like you said, that is incredibly subjective and opinionated. At the end of the day, and again, I'm not trying to get off the mental health, but this is also why you do not get fixated on placings at a show. They're just opinions. Who cares? You know, like you just got to roll it. But anyway, regardless, so with the judging, you got the three judge thing. I think it's got to change. This is a weird one that I'll bring up. But I brought up on the last podcast. I do not think judges should be allowed backstage. I do not think they should be allowed anywhere. Either they are collectively moving as a unit. That's it. They go out of the room. They go together. They want to go out and get a sub. Somebody goes with them. They're not talking to nobody. They're not making phone calls. You got to treat it seriously because, just for examples, I brought up before, a judge could go backstage and see me come up and talk to me. Let's just give Eric, the trainer, shout out to him. Let's just pretend he's a judge at the Mr. America, right? Let's just make fantasy land real quick. He was a pig farmer. I rescue pigs, so we have this incredible bond with each other. Don't you think that's going to sit in the back of his head if I'm close to the next person and he's like, but that guy's a pig farmer. He's awesome. He rescues pigs. That should never be in his mind, and I wouldn't want it in his mind because that's not cool. The other thing too I've noticed with judges being backstage, excuse me, guys, girls, anybody backstage, they will be, lax. They're going to be sitting down. They're going to be just not tight, nothing. And then you're going to get the judges seeing all these people being lax and having their stomachs not hanging out, but to say that natural bodybuilders have that problem, they don't. But like they're not holding their six pack in while they're backstage. They're relaxed. They're going to save that for the show because a lot of people don't know. It's work up on stage. You got really hot lights. You got to pose. You cramp up. It's hard. So you're not going to sit there and flex as hard as you can all the time. And the judge comes back, you start to see like, oh yeah, look at that guy. You look good on stage, but now his abs are gone because he's just sitting on the sofa and like, just looking bad. And then it just gets into the brain. I'm not saying it could affect the outcome, but then if they go back out on stage and it's a very close call between two guys, they can remember what these guys look like backstage, and it could affect the outcome of the judge. And I think That's just a
Usually does.
silly
It
side
usually
thing.
does.
And then obviously, I am 1 billion% against clients and judges having clients and shows. If judges have clients and shows, they're going to allow that. Judge cannot judge. A person A who is a judge could not judge, should not be able to judge the class that they have a client in. And this is also why you can't have 3 judges, because in my world, if you wanted to allow the judge to do that, and then one judge had to get out of the class, well, now you got 2 judges judging a class, and that's even more absurd. And I'm not going to fill it in unless there's somebody qualified to do it, which is a whole other thing that we could talk about, because I think they need to unify what the judging needs to be across the board. We have social media nowadays. This is 2022. You can get people into group chats. If you really want to have good judging, these people will make the time to do it. You don't have to pay them. I did judging last year at the Upstate New York show, and he wanted to pay me, and I just love bodybuilding. So I went there. I was like, I don't need money. I just like doing it. Came out, had fun, saw my friends. Boom, goodbye. I did the judging. We had like 6 of us there. Went smooth. Everybody was pretty much on the same page. And we all had a little thing beforehand with what we're looking for, because another topic we might not have time, who knows, but classes. So yeah, we sit there and the judging should be pretty straightforward, but for whatever reason we have such a method now with judging. I'll let you go.
Okay, I hope you're ready for this. 50 years of watching judging. I'm going to call out every natural and non-natural organization, judging panels, from Jim Mannion on down to John Lindsay on down to Denny Kagos, Mark Terrellio, everybody out there. You're not going to like what I have to say, but you know what? After 50 years, I'm either going to earn your respect, or you're going to say, I don't know what I'm talking about, or you might heed my suggestion and get up off the buttocks and say, you know what? Let's see if he's truly right. Let's question our own panel of judges. Okay, here we go. 3 judges never should happen. Minimal 6 judges. I believe every organization should have 3 chairs between every single judge. I believe there should be a partition between each judge where you can't even see the next judge. Is this a lot of prep and homework to put up? Of course. But I'm going to get to the brunt of this. Everything should be done in pen, not pencil, because I've seen judges' scorecards erased at Muscle Mania. I'm going to call out Lou Swick on this. Buddy, I've seen your judges erase 5th place and put 2nd or 3rd place up there. And you know what? I could care less if somebody comes back and says, well, I'm going to sue him for defamation of character. Well, you can take that defamation of character and put it where the sun doesn't shine, because I'm going to be real hard on this topic. So you put the partitions up. You have 6 judges minimal. You have a head judge do the call outs, your symmetry rounds, and everything else. After each competitor does their symmetry round, you start switching people around on the comparison rounds. And after everybody's compared, then you ask the head judge to ask all of his 6 judges, do you want anybody else switched around? Now, let me tell you, the only time in 50 years I was impressed with the judge that judged me was Tom Platz, the golden boy. Yeah. This happened in Phoenix, Arizona. I'll never forget this show. It was a Don Robinson natural show. Tom thought he was judging an IFBB Mr. Olympia. Oh, my God. There was 8 of us up there. I kid you not, we had to be up there for probably, it seemed like 40 minutes. What judges need to understand, let's talk about the one such important thing, lighting. Yeah. Guy in the center could have the best lighting. He could be ripped to shreds. He looks like he's the 1st place winner. I'm a judge, and I've judged before, so I have a right to talk about this. Judged many, many shows throughout my life. The guy on the far right under that lighting that doesn't look really profuse lighting, he looks pretty good. Let's put him in the center. Well, Tom Platz did it differently. 8 people, everybody had to switch under the lighting 8 different times under each lighting, and got a chance to see if they were truly showing their best or not. Right. I think there is definitely not enough switching around. Some of these shows I've been into, 8, 9 people on stage. It's amazing. These judges are up and down with people, 8, 9 competitors in 5 to 10 minutes. Come on, people. You're not that good of a judge that you can scrutinize that quick. and then, come up with, I've seen judges' scorecards 1-1-1, 2-2-2, 3-3-3. There's no discrepancy on all 6 judges. I'm sorry, no panel of judging and no amount of clinics are going to make 6 minds have 6 identical scores.
No.
I have to call BS on that. What happens is people sit here and go, what do you think? And they're talking, this discussion amongst judges. I've seen it because I've been in it for 50 years, watched it on stage at Muscle Mania and other organizations I don't care to name, but the judges are talking to each other while the athletes are on stage, and some are laughing. And I was at a show last year where one of the judges actually called out a competitor's number and was rooting for that competitor. Come on, people. We pay more than enough money to be in your organizations. All we're asking for as athletes is a fair shake. And I don't know why, over all these decades, I can't get one promoter to see if I'm correct. Put partitions between 3 chairs, separate the judges. You collect the score sheets. No judges are backstage as a trainer. No judge can talk at prejudging to any athlete. When the judging is done, the judges, which a lot of times with Denny Kakos' organization, they go to lunch and they don't talk to the athletes, because what about the other athletes that see, hey, they're going up to Alleister, they must be chummy. He's going to beat me just because he knows those judges. It gets in somebody's mind. Judges, until the show is over, should stick to the 6 judges, and that's it. That's my total thought on judging, and there's got to be more switching around. And I cannot believe that some organizations will allow bodybuilder to win physique and classic physique. That bodybuilder might be so phenomenal, but again, I've gone to judging clinics before. There's criteria. We're looking for this. Okay, so that bodybuilder, in theory, for board shorts, when he's got Tom Platt's legs, should he be winning physique? In my opinion, absolutely not. Because the guy who's in second place, who really might, or even third or fourth place, really might have that perfect board short physique, just got bumped off from a bodybuilder. So even in the IFBB, I know I've talked to headquarters with IFBB. Every panel has trouble deciphering, how do we judge bikini? How do we judge wellness? How do we do this and that? And most judging, if you have a clinic of 15 people up on stage, usually they're just concentrating on the top 5 for placements with the trophies or the medals. Very few times, unless you go to like the USA maybe, they rate them 1 through 10, and then everybody else gets 15, 15, 15. Right. But I mean, I've gone to shows where they don't even rate anybody past 5th place. Hey, judges, wake up, smell the coffee. That person wants to know if he came in 7th, 8th, or 9th place out of 15. How's he going to know how to improve himself to move up a couple of placings? So as far as I'm concerned, every organization, one thing I do want to give a shout out to, the INBA, PNBA, at least they have a judging clinic, every March, and at least he does WADA testing. You're not gonna catch every athlete, and there's no organization where everybody's 100% clean. You'll always have cheaters. There's people who know how to beat the test. There's 7, 8 ways how to beat the test. If you're that desperate to beat a natural bodybuilding test, you know what? Get yourself back in the IFBB or the NPC. Right. Leave the natural people alone so they have a fair playing field. But again, back to the judging. I know I'm jumping all over the place. It's a subjective sport, and to the athletes, remember, you know what? I hate to say, you could smile wrong, and some female judge hates your smile. Is she going to use it against you? In my opinion, maybe. You don't want to think that way, but you know what, people, judges are humans. They all have, if you have a powerlifting judge, he's going to go towards, and I've seen this because I've talked to judges that I've been judged from, say, well, I like the thicker body. Okay, and then you get the Frank Zane type physique who likes the more ripped physique like I possess. You have to remember, it's a subjective sport. Just because you came in 2nd or 3rd doesn't mean you're not a great bodybuilder. Like Miles said with NPC, everybody is so happy with 1st place at every show. The overall winner's happy as heck. I love when Miles sits there and says, you second, and he says this at every prejudging meeting, you second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth place winners, everybody tells you you got ripped off. Your family says you got ripped off. Your best friend says you got ripped off. Chances are you didn't get ripped off. Maybe one or two placings max if it's not a great panel of judges. But remember, don't let that rain on your parade. You went up there, you got down to single digit body fat levels as a guy, hopefully, and you did the best you can. Go home and celebrate. Don't just celebrate if you get first place, because you know, you have to get out of your mind that if you didn't get first place, don't treat it as last place, you know?
Yeah.
Learn from your experience and ask the judges, what can you improve on? But let me explain one thing about with judges, you could be a little less, the way you present a body part. I mean, you've done it to me, you know, like, wow, you look like a swimmer. Why are you competing in bodybuilding? I've had judges be that mean to me. So if you're going to ask for judges' opinions, remember, some of them are going to be very cruel because that's their personality. Don't take it to heart. Utilize it. But remember, if they're not saying it with some type of kindness, well, you know, hey Tracy, you could maybe do more standing calf raises to develop your gastrocnemius muscles. Judges, be a lot more professional and nice, because you know what? You're being paid, or at least taken out to lunch, or being paid $50 to $100 to judge. You know, the promoters have to understand that the judges are their bread and butter. So if you have no customer relationships, you're gonna end up with less and less athletes. You know, and the judging at the NPC not the NPC Masters USA last year was terrible. I competed in it, and when they wanted us to pay to watch our own show, hey, you know who you are, you two promoters out there. No kudos for you. You guys are going to lose a lot of athletes, because you know what? It's one thing to charge to enter a show and charge for tickets, but for the athletes to have to pay to watch their own show, come on, folks. Whatever happened to the athlete comes first. And we do come first because we are what have you having your houses, your $1 million homes. We made you the finances that you have in the bank. So, you know, you got to be a little like, you know, this year an NPC show got canceled because there wasn't enough athletes. The promoter was going to lose money at it. And I actually want to say to the promoter, but I didn't. He's a good friend of mine. Hey, you know what? What about all the shows you made $30,000, $40,000? Yes, you only had ridiculous, Alleister, 9 athletes signed up. You know what? Still throw the show.
Why not?
Still put the show on, because it's your reputation. I did a Muscle Mania in Las Vegas once. It was the day before Mr. Olympia, IFBB, 12 athletes. I give Lou Swick credit because he still threw the show. So
Yeah, no.
again, to all the promoters out there, I wish one of you would do this. I think the scores would be all over the scorecards. And then that's when you would have to really have another judging clinic for your supposed professional judges. End of story.
Yeah. So just things I've been jotting down as you're talking. I've come in. I want to say there was two shows I came in second, and then one in third. I asked the judge what I always love to hear the feedback. I like constructive criticism, but the thing that just irked me when I heard this like 3 or 4 times, was the color of tan I used didn't look good. I'm just like, did my muscles look good? Like, was I just as muscular as the next guy? I mean, I don't care about my tan, which brings me into the next thing. Actually, let's piggyback to this real quick. You said lighting. I cannot believe, and you lived through this, so you could attest to this. What on earth are we doing using Dream Tan and Tanner when in the 19, all the way up until probably, you would know this better than I do, maybe like 19, I'd say like early 80s, all of a sudden you had to use Dream Tan as a white male. You couldn't be under the regular lights anymore and without being grotesquely tan, but like, yet somehow in the 1970s they made Arnold look like a Greek god without any tanning supply. And I'm like, well, how can you not get this replicated nowadays? Like, it blows my mind. It really does blow my mind that I have to put tanner on to look good under lights. I know I'm a pretty pale guy, but in the summertime I get decently dark. The general skin color of Arnold, and there's just no way with the lights they use I would even be able to be seen on stage, and it blows my mind that they can't fix that. So whatever. The other thing,
Lighting is so critical.
it is. It really really is. I can't. It You can look at science behind the way light is bent, and then distance affects stuff. It's a judge. If you're further away from a man, they begin to look more and more muscular. The closer you get, they look less and less muscular. This is because of the way refractions and light and various other things. But there is a science behind that. There's also a science behind why a very dark African guy doesn't need to use any green tan, because the pigmentation and the way it refracts the light under the heat of that really intense skylight on the stage, they don't need it, and they generally look more muscular in natural sunlight. Best example I could give you is like that one WWE wrestler, the Irish guy. What the heck's his name? I forgot his darn name, but super, like, incredibly. Man, how can I not remember his name? He's a very Irish guy, red hair. Sheamus. Sheamus is his name. He is incredibly pale. If he put Dream Tan on, he would look pretty darn good. But when he's out in the ring and he's just his regular skin color, he's so ghost white, it's hard to tell that he's even that muscular. But I've seen him in some pictures on Instagram stuff. That dude is pretty built. He's got some pretty rounded delts, but you wouldn't know it based off the way the light refracts off his body. And it sucks, but it is what it is. That's an extreme example. So I'd like to see that change. I don't know how or what they got to do. I
To
know.
be honest,
What was
in
that?
Corona, California, Denny Keiko's put on a show at his house in the backyard. Quite a few shows last year, and with COVID, I thought the athletes in his backyard under the natural sunlight with just a certain amount of, whether it was not Dream Tan, one of the other tanning products, they look better than ever because the sun helps dilate your vascularity. I thought the athletes looked really, really good at his house. And, again, the natural sunlight brought out the vascularity. These guys look 25, 30% better than when they do shows that I've seen them at inside auditoriums. Another thing they need to do, these auditoriums, where did they get the notion of having them so freezing all the time?
Oh
So ridiculous. I mean, to get a vascular pump, you have to spray your body down with hot stuff,
Right.
which is a vascular dilator, to even get warmed up. I mean, promoters the day before cut that air conditioning out. We're at 3, 4, 5, 6, 8% body fat. We don't want the air conditioning at 65 degrees.
No, not at all. One thing with the lighting, I do think the reason why it kind of suffers nowadays is because they're so they got backdrop banners. They're promoting all this different stuff with supplement companies. So now, instead of just shining lights directly over the athletes and then leaving the backdrop completely shadowed, because that's what would happen if we used really good lighting, they have to now shine the whole stage up so we can see. We have Core Nutritional sponsoring the OTB show. You know what? I don't really care about any of that. Put that stuff in the front next to the athletes, and then put the lights the way they're supposed to be, and we'll really start to see. One of the things that it bugs me too, because like for a guy like me, I just have that skin complexion where if I'm in the sunlight, like you said, I could look upwards of 30% more crazy than if I'm even on stage with Dream Tan on. I look way better outside, and it frustrates me because I just sometimes think I'm just, it sounds crazy to say because you're all under the same lighting, but it just sometimes it's frustrating to see what you've looked like prior in natural lighting, and then you go on stage and you're just like, I didn't even look that good. And you're kind of like, all right, whatever. And then it loads into the whole beginning conversation we had, but whatever. I don't know what you think about this, but I want to get into this. One of the, I don't know, definitely at least get this in before the video ends. With judging, I am a big firm believer that you should not judge routines. They should not be counted in anything. Nothing should be judged aside from the mandatory poses. That's it, because what else matters? You're going to tell me this guy wearing a mask, flaring around a sword, doing all this crazy stuff, getting best poser, is now going to get more points over the next guy who's more muscular than them because this guy just came out to some random music and just wanted to flex real quick and walk off stage? That blows my mind. It does. There's no reason for that, in my opinion. If we're going to do, and if that's the case, there's no reason for 7 mandatory poses. Let's just start adding in all sorts of stuff. So like, why don't you get on this one stickling thing with the Mr. America? I really was not happy about. I love Mark and I love that show. General appearance was being judged and it was worth 3 points. What in God's name is general appearance and why does that matter with bodybuilding? For what? It's exactly what you said earlier. Did I smile? Did I smile on stage long enough? Because that's general appearance. If I did, maybe I didn't get my 3 points. Horse shit right there.
Or your hair wasn't looking right, or
Like
you didn't shave, right, or
all sorts of
you
stuff.
got marked down for getting fighting with a bear or something. You got. I agree. Muscle Mania. Actually, I did them a few times, and number one, it takes them 6 hours to check people in because everybody has to urine test.
Right.
And one thing I didn't like about Muscle Mania is you do it at the Golden Nugget. There's 500 to 900 people standing in line, and there's one nurse doing the urine test.
Jesus.
It takes the day before like 7-8 hours. It was so cold in November one year, I ended up in the hospital standing outside. I ended up getting hyperthermia. That's how low my body fat was. So after that, I'm like, nah, I'm not doing that competition anymore.
That's wild.
It's judging. They say at the Muscle Mania is a third. Your physique presentation's a third of the score. You know what? That's what they say, and they write it down. A lot of other organizations say it counts, but meanwhile, I've never heard, at least in the INBA, PNBA, I've never heard, and that's the only one I can speak of because I've been with them most of 30 years or 25 years, that somebody got first place because of his presentation over a guy who's second, who looks twice as yoked, but got not a high enough score in the presentation. You're right. I think it's the quarter turns and the mandatories. It's a bodybuilding competition. It's not a ballet competition.
Right.
Some of us can pose beautifully, like Brandon Lario, Adrian Pedro, even me, Shaq. I mean, I'm not a graceful poser. I'm a bodybuilder and not taking it away from them. I hit poses hard. I use hard songs like you do.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't count at all. You're being graded on your physique. If we're going to make it a pretty boy show, then let's have a division like wellness. Hey, we're going to have a pretty boy division.
Yeah, which,
I totally 100% agree with you on that. But again, I will go back to when you said lighting. Lighting will make or break a physique. I've been in auditoriums where the lighting, a guy on the far right, you can't even tell if he's got any vascularity in his deltoids. And then they finally move him on the very last call out. And that guy, I've seen it where that guy probably could have won the show, comes up like 5th or 6th place because they didn't let him do enough comparisons. That's why I really like that Tom Platz put us through 8-9 poses and then switched everybody under different lighting. That's why we were up there for a long time. You know what, people, if you can't handle posing on stage for a long time, then you know what? I wouldn't mark you down if you're sitting there shaking, but it shows me you didn't do your homework, because when I go through a posing routine on my mandatories, it makes my workout look easy.
Yeah.
Mandatories are tough.
No, for sure. And that's one of the things that I made sure going into Mr. America. I actually have it on video where generally in every pose I was in on stage, I made sure I was the last to come out because I wanted to make sure I could pose the longest. I was just doing it deliberately, and
I noticed that, which is good.
I told my buddy that I looked at the camera and I was right about the pose again, and we were in the relaxed. So I had my lats puffed out. I was just looking down at the camera and said, I could do this all day. I could pose all day, and it's just like, you got to prepare yourself because we were up there for a little while. So you got to prepare yourself to be up there for a long time.
And people have to realize, if you're not, I tell people hydrate or evaporate. People don't understand water. I don't know where people got this over the decades. Water does not hold water, people. Sodium retains water. You have to drink water. Your body with your brain is over 70% water.
Right.
To sit there, one Olympia natural, 5 people went to the hospital. Guess what for? 5 out of 5. Dehydration. They all had to get IV'd. People, picture a water balloon. If you take half the water out of a water balloon, it's going to look like crap.
Yeah.
So wherever this myth came from, water, limiting water and taking diuretics like Lasix, you know what? you're gonna die. You're gonna die if you do that. You know,
No,
you have to have water in your muscles for them to look full.
yeah, I totally agree. Rob and I, we got on this early on. We found out what worked the best was doing exactly what we did getting into the peak week, not changing anything. You know, obviously manipulate your carbs a little bit to try and get that pump going, but and fill out but you should be eating into the show anyways. But yeah, like we're not cutting water and doing all these crazy things. We're drinking, we're going right into the show, we're feeling good. You know, you do your best to get intracellular water and reduce extracellular water, but you're by no means are you dehydrated. That's crazy. And people, I always got accused of Rob and I got accused heavily in 18 and 19 of using like antibiotic stuff. And I was like, we did nothing. I didn't even use dandelion root. I was like, all I did was go into that show and manipulate my diet the way I needed to, and we got shredded to the bone. I was like, just we didn't do anything crazy peak week. I was trying to tell people like we just went into that show. You know, I was eating pancakes the day before and drinking a lot of water. You know, I was like having a good time. I was actually starting to feel good those last couple of days because I started to eat a little bit more and fill out. And you know, people
I
don't
know.
understand what is possible just by
I know. When you get really shredded, people always say, Tracy, what are you taking? I say triple D. They go, do you get it in Mexico? I said, no, you get it from your heart and your soul. It's called dedication, desire, and diet and discipline.
yeah,
And they
yeah,
walk away like, rah, 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 rah.
yeah.
You
Then
know,
they go
it's
home
like
and do
people all
triple
the
D.
time skipping days in the gym. I train 7 days a week. I haven't skipped a day in the gym unless it was medical in 50 years. Nothing will outbeat consistency. Even if you have days where you go 50%, that's 50% versus the guy who totally skipped and wonders why he got fourth or fifth place.
Right. Yeah. No question. And one of the other reasons why I think judging needs to eliminate everything but the mandatories is because this sport is already subjective as it is. It's already subjective enough. We need to, in order, my ultimate goal before I die is to see natural bodybuilding get in the Olympics. So, in order to do this, we need to make bodybuilding, and I say this as if there's not already ballet and ice skating in the Olympics and curling, but at least curling you can kind of see a finite score. But in order to do this, we're going to need to make bodybuilding as finite as we physically can. And by adding more things into judging, like general appearance, it gets larger subjectively. We need to make it smaller, so we need to start isolating. What are we looking for? We're only looking at 7 poses. Score them, done. Write your comments down on what each one can improve on. See you later. Um, you know, and then the other thing I wanted to bring up too that I forgot to say earlier was no bodybuilder should ever be able to win classic physique or physique because nobody should be allowed to cross over. This would be like,
Thank you.
it said this earlier, it'd be like, okay, we're going to allow the UFC heavyweight champ to fight the lightweight champ, and he can just do whatever he wants now because, you know, whatever. Chances are the really small bantamweight division is not going to beat a heavyweight champ. So when this guy is coming in and throwing board shorts on and his abs look ridiculous compared to the guy that was going to win physique, and then they give it to him because he's got the best body. Well, okay, yeah, for bodybuilding he's got the best body. I would argue that he doesn't. You know, maybe he doesn't have the V taper. Yeah, he's way more ripped, whatever. But maybe his taper's not there. Maybe he can't do a vacuum. Maybe you know, he has small calves and he covered up his enormous quads, and now he just looks weird. I don't know, but that should not be allowed to happen because they should not allow people to cross over. I've been to numerous shows where Rob and I were getting ready backstage, and we saw guys getting ready backstage, and we were like, "Oh yeah, it's on. We're gonna have some good competition here," just to find out that that guy was in a different division. And I'm like, "Oh, okay, fine." And then they didn't cross over, but it would have been fun if they did. But at the end of the day, I'm happy they didn't because that's how it should be.
I had judged a show with 5 other judges, and I was the head judge. I'm not going to name the organization because it's irrelevant, but the bodybuilder won physique and board shorts, and I argued with all 5 judges. Some of them totally agreed with my judging, and then the promoter overrode my decisions on that. We were in sync with the bodybuilder, but the bodybuilder won physique and board shorts. And what this promoter told me, Tracy, you know, I understand your head judging. Number one, the promoter shouldn't be able to override my decisions. That's why he has me as a head judge. He goes, at the end of the day, the best physique wins everything. And I walked out of the venue. This is the night show. I walked out of the venue. Was in another state, and I left. I just can't agree with that. But what you're saying about crossing over, you know what? It's never going to happen this way, Alleister, for one reason. You're taking away 50% of the financial income in that promoter's pocket.
Yep.
That's why it's even gotten worse. We have wellness, we have angels, we have kids, bodybuilding. I'm waiting for the over 70 with no teeth division to materialize, or grandma. You know, we have diva divisions. You know,
women with 1 kid, women with 3 kids.
yeah, evening gown. We have tattoo. You know, from a promoter's point of view, he's saying, well, I have to have a division for every walk of life. Well, you're also thinking about yourself too, to a point. And another thing I hate that promoters do is, this happened at some major shows I did. Bodybuilders went on either halfway through the show or at the end of the show. Promoters, wake up. Who do you think's the most depleted nutrition-wise at a bodybuilding show? Hello, the bodybuilders. They should always go on first to avoid any medical mishaps that could happen.
That is a great point right there.
Timing is everything. Everything.
Speaking of that, pros should probably be going out before amateurs, because they're going to generally be in a more prepped spot to be in that situation.
Exactly. Pros and then amateurs in the bodybuilding, and then whittle it down, because you know what? Nobody depletes like the pros and the amateurs. You know, so yeah, some of the bikini girls are there, but again, you got to take care of bodybuilding was here first before any other type of division. Treat it like that, you know?
Yeah.
But again, you know what? Promoters are making millions of dollars. I would like to think that they would see some validity in what I'm saying, but the cold hard fact, I would love to see somebody take any of my advice. It would impress me as far as having respect to them as a promoter. But you know what?
I'm going to give
OCB
advice to all the people I talk to, and hopefully you'll see it this year, because some of the shows that I'll be talking to people with, and they're going to watch the podcast. I know these people will. You know, I genuinely will advocate for that. One of the reasons
they cannot argue with my points of views, you know. Hey, let's see if he's right. Let's put 3 chairs. But what have they got to lose other than authenticity of how subjective really is the sport? Because judges at every competition, I saw it at the American when I watched it, judges are talking to other judges at the table.
Yeah, and all right, so I think
shouldn't be allowed.
No, shouldn't be allowed. Also, when people are walking out and they're sitting right next to each other, some judges might say, wow. Some judges might raise their eyebrows. Some judges might not make a reaction. And when other judges see that, they know, okay, you know, let's just say Mishak walks out and the guy with jaw opens up. He's like, his eyes come out wide, like, oh. And then somebody else comes out right after him, and they're just like, you know, like that. And it's like a judge next to the person sitting peripherally would be like, okay, clearly the Mishak made way more of a facial expression on that judge than the other guy did, so he must be knowing something, because maybe he knows more. I don't know, but whatever. But here's another reason why I think what you said with Tom Platz is so important, and they need to rotate. I don't understand this, obviously, but when you have judges sitting at different angles of looking at competitors, they're going to have different perspectives of each competitor based off the way they're sitting. The reason why we should rotate is because every judge should see every competitor at the same angle. And if they're not, of course the guy standing right in front of them is going to look freakier than the guy that's way down on the right. You know, that just is common sense. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, yeah, they should definitely be rotating these guys. You know, it just gets crazy.
Everybody should get even a couple of poses at the center stage. Number one, we all know, like, you know, guy in the middle first, guy on the left second, guy on the far right third, and then it goes fourth, fifth. Everybody knows this. So why not make it confusing for the competitors after prejudging not to lose their confidence and say, hey, I got in the center stage a couple of times, so maybe I'll have a shot. Even if he doesn't, at least you're keeping the athletes. This is the best point of the day. You're keeping the athletes' mental spirits up through the entire night show too. Because they make it so blatant who's first, second, and third. Come on, judges. I mean, you just killed everybody else upstage. So they're going to come back at night and say, well, why should I pose? And, why should I care? You have to confuse. And a couple of times I've done shows where nobody knew who won. It was pretty close, but they took 9 people and everybody got some time center stage. And that was with Tom Platz.
Yeah. The other thing I think too is in a big show, I don't know what you want to consider a big show, but let's just say over 15 guys on stage. I do think that they definitely should, they should, like last year at the America, there was almost 20 of us on stage. It literally went like this. First guys come out on this stage, second guys come out on that stage. We all stood in a line. Quarter of my body's inside the curtain because it wasn't wide enough for us. And then it was really quick with first call out and second call out. I think what needs to be done is you need to either pick height or weight, divide the classes up, and then start taking winners again. I mean, that's just the way I grew up bodybuilding with height or weight divisions. And I don't know when it changed to just having everybody come on stage at once, but if there's too many guys for the stage to hold, you got to do something, like divvy it up in some manner. But there's just so many different ways you can tackle that.
Yeah, when there's that many people, a lot of times I've seen shows where they'll bring out the first 10 and then keep so many people out in that first 10 and then bring out the second 10 and keep 3 or 4 out in that one. And then that's how they pick their top 5. Right. Not a bad way of doing it, but then you have to bring out the lower part of the class and pick out those last 2 placings and then bring out the other class. Actually, I've only seen that done once, and I actually thought it was a pretty darn good way of doing it versus having people crowded on stage and just be told, okay, number 78, number 81, come forward. I mean, there's no judging panel that can have 20 guys on stage that immediately know who the top 5 are. I mean,
let me tell you. No, and this is great you bring this up. When I was at Mr. America, this is exactly how it went. Group 1, Group 2, we all came out together on the stage, right? And the stage could not hold us all, so we did. I just happened to be the last guy on the stage. It didn't have anything to do with them rotating us yet. I just happened to be the last guy on the stage. So I'm sitting there, and I have video of this as we're quarter turning, because this is all they did. I'll sum this up real quick. They quarter turned us 4 times until we got back to the front. This is exactly what happened, and I don't agree with this. This cannot be like this because it's ludicrous. They went, all right, you guys, they called out the middle numbers, the middle 2 guys, and they said, everybody on the right of that guy and the left of that guy, go back to the corner and split into a B section and then sit in the back. And then just based off of those quarter turns with all of us on stage, they already had first call on us.
I saw that.
Absolutely. It just blows my mind. So, I was like, you know what? I had the video. You could see where I literally was, so dumbfounded that I had to pose into the curtain. I stepped in front of the guy that was next to me, and I said, you don't want to move us? I'm going to stand right here, and I'm going to block this guy because he's about half a foot shorter than me, and I don't know what you want me to do about this because I'm not going to pose with the curtain covering me. I was just like, it's not happening. So, and then for them to make first call-outs like that, I don't agree. That's why I thought with that many people on the side of the stage, they should have split us into height or weight and then got a much better idea with only 8 guys coming out at the time instead of 16 all at once to figure out who was going to be first call out. But whatever, you live
it's all about time element, getting in and out of the auditorium without being overcharged for some venues are like $200 an hour if you go over the charge. So maybe that's what's going through the promoters' minds. I don't know. I think the promoters have to get back to number one. At the USA last year, they didn't have food tables set backstage for the athletes, and I praise promoters who spend $400 to $500 for the athletes to have Gatorade, whether it's be M&Ms, trail mix. The promoter out here in Phoenix, he does it at every show. He has 10 tables of food for the athletes. And I think every organization needs to start, hey, put out some money. You're getting paid $50,000 to $100,000 from athletes from the show. You know, have adequate enough weights backstage, enough mirrors, enough food. I mean, that's part about promoting. I promoted a show in Phoenix with Denny Kakos one year, and Denny said, run it the way you want. To this day, people are still talking about how good the show was. We gave the top 3 winners in every class swords. I mean, I spent some serious money on this show, but you know what? That's what gets athletes coming back. They, you know, nobody cares about getting I don't want to say a shirt and a sticker for your refrigerator. I mean, you know, get a little more, you know, give somebody some protein drinks and a goodie bag, or, you know, the USA, the goodie bag was a joke,
Right.
and the promoters were all about just getting money, you know, and that takes athletes like me, seasoned veterans who know what to look for, say publicly, I will never do the Masters USA ever again because it was ran like a Goodwill store.
Yeah, we've done shows. Robbie's won a goodie bag. Goodie bag was valued at, I don't even know, something like, they said the first place guy was going to get like, I don't know, $500-700 in supplements in the goodie bag, and Robbie won it. And we went after and we Googled the costs of all the supplements right from the place, and it was like, I don't even know, $160. I was just like,
Exactly.
I was like, all right, well, whatever, you know, cool, we got that. But yeah, I don't know. I just think I do. Yeah, I think
I
that.
hope judging. I hope judging. I hope some of these promoters will watch this podcast and say, you know what, he's got some points. I hope they're not too shallow-minded just to blow it off. Say, hey, you know what? I'm making 6 digits a year. What's he doing other than giving me his money? Why should I change? Well, change is good,
Right.
but very few promoters are willing to change because of their ego and their pride. To all you promoters out there, you have to change. You know, it took, I mean, to be honest, it took you guys 25, 30 years to ban Dream Tan when you kept getting fined in the auditorium because people's Dream Tan was roaring off on the curtains and they were wiping their hands. Don't take 30 years to realize what I'm saying is validated,
Right.
and let's make the change. Let's give everybody up on stage the stage time they deserve, because that last place winner, that last place person paid the same $400-500 entry fees as the guy in first place. And to everybody who's got magazines out there, you know what? Us old timers is what made your organization. You need to give more magazine coverage to the masters, grandmasters, and ultra grandmaster guys, because a lot of you promoters out there think, well, you know, they're kind of wrinkled skin now and this and that. But it's the younger millennials that look up to people like me and say, hey, he did it for that long. You know, we need our exposure. And to everybody out there who has magazines, whether they're online or in paper form, give the old people who made your organization. We made your organization, promoters. Hate to say it, you can like it or lump it. We made the organization. We were the first timers out there. You need to give us the recognition we deserve because we're the ones who stuck it out for 40, 50, 60 years.
Right. Yeah, I would like to see that. Yeah, I totally agree with you. You need to, you know, you got to treat the people that helped you get to where you are just as good as you treat yourself if you
And
do.
every organization should have an over 50 pro bodybuilding physique,
Yep.
classic physique, and over 60 and over 70. Every promoter tells me, well, in the over 70 pro physique, what if we only have 2 people? Well, let me ask you a question. Does that make sense? Okay, you just got 2 more entry fees for $800. So why would you care? Though you cannot compare a 40-year-old physique, which I got compared 2 years ago. At the time I was 63, to an over 40 pro physique bodybuilder.
Right.
I mean, pro physique competitor. His skin is 22 years younger than me. Unless I'm doing growth hormone, he's going to look tighter.
Right.
And that's a cold hard fact. Divisions have to be grouped in 10-year increments. You know, I mean, come on, promoters, let's get real. That's one thing the NPC does do at the Nationals. They do have an over 50, 60, 70, and 80. And one of the best INBA bodybuilders ever, rest his soul in peace, Carl Marshall, won it in the 50 age group, 60s, 70s, and 80s until he died. So INBA, NGA, OCB, you all need to have 50, 60, 70, 80-year-old divisions, because you know what? You should be so proud that we want to compete in your shows at 70, 80 years old. There was a guy on Facebook the other day still competing, 84 years old. Kudos to him. He has my respect over anybody. Longevity.
Yeah.
Let's give it some credit, promoters. Let's make those divisions happen.
Yeah, for sure. And then, yeah, I mean, I feel like, you know, it's just so many areas in judging that we could just totally rectify. I do think
We could do 10 podcasts on it.
yeah, I know it is crazy. I know. I feel like we've already been going for like shoot now, hour and 20 minutes or so, almost an hour and a half. Yeah, geez.
All right.
Yeah, I definitely. I think we pretty much nailed those two topics. We're gonna have to do another one again soon, obviously. Maybe Rob will join us for the next one.
Would love it.
I don't want to chew your ear off. I could talk until the sun comes up tomorrow.
He's lucky to have such a great workout partner and such a good friend, because you always are praising him, and vice versa. You guys make a good team. There needs to be more camaraderie like that in bodybuilding. You know, we all can only be ourselves. You can't be Rob. Rob can't be you. But as long as the friendship is bonded, no matter who gets first or second, you know, that's a real friendship. And people out there need to have real friends in their life and real significant others. And that's great, you know.
Yeah, you know, it really is. I can't stress it enough. It helps keep you mentally happy too when you find somebody that's like, you know, it's just human nature. You feel empowered when you got other people trying to do what you're doing and you're working towards a common goal. It's just that simple. But yeah, I mean, trying to think, that pretty much I would say wraps it up for that.
Yep.
Yeah, hopefully.
Those were some awesome conversations. Very awesome conversations.
Oh, yeah. I knew it was going to be, I knew we were going to tee this off. I think one of these days we should try and get like with, maybe, who knows? Maybe the next one we get you, Phil, and I, and then Rob too, and we get a four-way going. I think that would be so cool. The
Could be
more
awesome.
people we get talking together about this in unity and just being open, we may disagree, we may agree, it needs to happen, but we all need to come together and start talking about this stuff.
You know what would be great is if we could get any organization promoter to come up and have him on a professional level, no slamming or cussing or anything.
No,
We're all professionals. Why they wouldn't do it this way?
I think Mark would come on with us.
I love Mark.
I think he would. He'll watch this video. I think I'm not calling him out, but I honestly think he would come on. He's genuine. He's one of the few people at the top. I know Mark. I truly know this man. He's very genuine, down to earth. And if the other thing with Mark too, I'll say real quick. I don't want to chew your ear off, but as athletes, don't be scared to vouch and express yourself to the judges, to the promoters, to the owners. Some people actually will do what you say and ask, and they might think about it. Mark's one of these people. He does take constructive criticism, and he will change things. I've done the America 2 times since he started this back up. I did the first 2 years. I'm not going to do it this year, but I will be there for strict curling. But when I witnessed the changes from the first year to the second year based off of what we had to say, what I had to personally say, huge. So I do think he'd come on. I do think he would come on and talk to us and take this on full brunt. Because he also knows you and I. We're not malicious people. I'm not trying to get him on here to set him up for something stupid. I just want to talk, talk to everybody, talk to the promoters.
Well, that would be interesting, because July 9th and July 16th are my last 2 shows. If he was to actually change that around, he might get me to do one Mr. America and come out of retirement, and I'd want to shake his hand and say, you know what? I'm glad out of all the dozens of promoters out there, you did it. You tried it, even just for 1 year. That would make me very ecstatic that somebody didn't think they were too high on their horse, because what I've seen real quick, I've even seen it at shows where they did urine testing, and I've gone backstage an hour after the show was done, and I saw helpers that were helping the promoters dump urine in the toilets. So, it's very disheartening for me, and I'm glad I'm stepping down. I've done everything I could on the amateur level. I'm very happy and content with what I've done. Now I'm going to just help other people prep for shows or whatnot. My biggest joy, though, if you've watched my videos, I train a lot of 70, 80, 90-year-old people. I'm going to get some of them on the news because it's all about, longevity. And that would be awesome. If we could get Mark on a podcast, that would be amazing because you know what? He'd be one up on every other promoter.
I'm talking about this. If a promoter can take and heed what we're saying and run with it, I think that's when that person starts to swallow up everybody else. Because if you're doing things truly for a generally good purpose for the athletes, you're not trying to make a rake and live this mansion lifestyle, and you want to help the sport grow, and you want to help the athletes. You're just going to be the guy, the show, the organization that everybody wants to do. So,
Right.
I don't know.
One last comment before we call it a wrap. I'm going to call out all promoters on something. You're not paying us on the amateur level to stick to one organization. Folks, promoters, I'm too darn old to be told, hey, you're doing an NPC show and you're supposed to only stick to our organization. Until you show me a 6-digit paycheck, I will compete in the OCB, NGA, INBA, whatever organization. You don't own me, folks. I own myself. And any promoter that gets mad, and I'm not going to mention names because I love several promoters, but they know who they are when I'm talking about them and when they see this podcast, because I'm going to forward the podcast to these promoters.
Yeah.
Hey, it only strengthens your organization by me going into other organizations. You're still getting your money. So why would you care where I'm competing at? This jealousy, it sounds like third grade garbage. Nobody owns me. I will compete where I want to compete. And all these promoters have to understand, oh, you want me to travel to Europe or Greece or Hungary or wherever. It's cheaper for me to compete in my own backyard. And if that's where the organization is, hey, say, I understand, instead of getting all belligerent about it.
Right.
Grow up. Come on. You're adults, and I'll compete wherever the hell I want to compete. Nobody owns me. Until you're giving me some contract,
right?
Or Dimetized Protein says we only want you to compete there. We're paying you $150,000 a year. You know what? I'll probably heed that advice. But come on,
right.
We want to compete where we feel good. And sometimes you don't have enough shows in an organization. And I want to do an organization that's like July 16th in Glendale, Arizona. The auditorium is 8 blocks from my house. Of course, I'm going to compete there
all day.
We all don't all day long. We don't have, a lot of us, a 6-digit bank account to fly around the country for a $35 medal. Sorry, doesn't work for me.
No, I totally agree. And that, I hope, and we'll save most of that topic for the next one we do, but I truly hope that does not happen and get any worse than it already is, because that will be there'll be a downward slope for natural bodybuilding if that continues to take precedence and it starts to spread from organization to organization. It already has. It's just not good.
It already has, because promoters have such inflated egos. They all need to drop their egos. They all need to work together. And one day, hopefully, that will happen. But they'll all, just like bodybuilders, leave your ego at the door and work with other promoters.
Agreed. Yeah, I think when that happens, it's going to be a beautiful day in bodybuilding, natural bodybuilding. Because unfortunately, that is the biggest starking difference between us and the other side is it's just NPC to IFBB, whereas we have 50 organizations with all pro divisions and all sorts of payouts. And like you said, you should be able to pick, unless there's a contract saying I'm getting money, not just something else. Like, I want money. I want money if I'm going to be competing in your organization. Plain and simple. Other than that, I'm going to do what I want. Like, why do you care so much? It's just, it is third grade nonsense, if you ask me. And people really need to just watch. I hope, when you tag people, I really hope they watch it. We're not bad-mouthing anybody. We're not putting anybody down.
Not at all.
But it's just like we're desperately trying to avoid the train wreck that could possibly happen that we're both aware of, that they may not be aware of. I don't know. I just don't know what other people are thinking. So
I think the whole podcast is very neutral. Nobody should take it personal, because we don't need any advice to be personal whatsoever. We just want to see the whole sport go to the next level, maybe to the Olympics, and do the best we can, whether people heed our advice or not. At least we're trying to give it out. Like I tell everybody, keep your mind right and your body tight and be happy and wake up every morning just happy to be alive.
So yeah, next podcast you and I are going to do, I'm going to write this down real quick so they can already look forward to this. I want to talk about more, you and I, maybe Rob will get in, how are we going to get this into the natural, how are we going to get this into the Olympics? We'll go into that more, because I think that will be booming for natural body. To me, and just saying this I don't want to go on, a rant here real quick, but just the Olympics can't be IFBB. They can't be because the drug testing. It just can't happen. So they'd have to do natural bodybuilding. Great. I think it would be the biggest thing we could ever get. And then on top of that, the next podcast I want to do is, we need to really dive into organizations working together instead of working against each other. Because if we turn into a bunch of sticks, we're going to break quick. If we bundle up, it's going to take a mighty force to take us down. And that's exactly what, it's a business. The IFBB does not want natural bodybuilding to flip-flop and have them being where we are now, where they are now. They don't never want that to happen. And they're going to do what they need to do to make sure that doesn't happen, whether the person watching this podcast wants to believe it or not, because unfortunately, people care more about money than they do people. There are people out there like that. There are a lot of people out there like that. So, oh well. But
true. Yeah. You'll always have your audience that wants to see the freaks of nature. Now, IFBB is never going to get dissolved, but natural bodybuilding can escalate to another level, which it needs to go to. That's for sure.
Yeah. So on that note, I hope everybody enjoys this over hour and a half podcast now. It was pretty good. This is probably the most fluent one I've ever done, and really smooth. You and I just have.
It'll give everybody a chance to do something on Memorial Day. They'll go, hey, let's look at that podcast.
Yeah, they'll all be driving. Hopefully, you're driving safe and you can just put this on the radio and listen to us, because it's, unless you want to stare at my grizzly bear fight, there's really not, you don't really need to watch us. So, I can't wait to do the next one. Hopefully, we get Mark on. If we get Mark on, I think we're going to start a trickling effect of the next one. We're going to get
awesome.
Hopefully we get.
All right. Have a great weekend. Have a great Memorial Day.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, I'm in the gym twice a day. It's just another day for me. But like I tell people, consistency is what wins the battle. So, folks, remember, get off the couch. Don't look like a slouch.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. I will talk to you again soon.